Hello everyone, it's Jeremy Baker with Possum Fork Heritage, and I'm here to talk to you about the Possum box that you just received in the mail. This Possum box will enable you to make a cutting board that is 10 inches by 15 inches by approximately 1 inch thick. It'll have rubber feet with stainless steel hardware like this, and it will be finished with a butcher block oil that I will have in a small vial that you will have received. And that's just simply a Howard's butcher block oil that has mineral oil and some other ingredients. And that's something that you can use to finish your cutting board. Within the box, there was a piece of African mahogany. There was a piece of maple, which is the whitest wood that you have in the box. There was a piece of purple heart, and that's a thin 3/4 inch piece. And then there was a piece of walnut that you have. And if you combine these 4 pieces of wood together, you'll notice that they are approximately 6 inches wide. And the reason for that is because in this project, you will be required to, if you want to make a 10-inch wide board, to saw each of the boards in half along the length of the grain. And that way you'll end up with 2 pieces of maple, 2 pieces of mahogany, 2 pieces of walnut, and 2 pieces of purple heart. And then you can put them together in any order. Now, if you do the math, you will know that you can actually get a 12-inch cutting board and close to 16 inches in length, and you can make your board however wide you want it, however long you want it. But in essence, typically we always mill our material longer, and after we glue it and assemble it, we trim it down to a final size. And so that's the way that I will be presenting the project, and then you can make adjustments if you desire. You will need an assortment of sandpaper. You can either buy individual packs of sandpaper, or you can go to a big box store and you can buy a whole pack of assorted sandpaper. And they may not exactly be in the same configuration that I'm going to say, but on the list I have 80 grit, 120 grit, 220 grit, and 320 grit sandpaper. Sometimes instead of 220, you'll get 150 in a pack, and that's fine. If you get a pack of sandpaper, you'll be able to use that sandpaper for future projects, and that's fine. You might also need some wax paper to help in the glue up. And then I do want to mention, for projects for your kitchen, I recommend Titebond 3 wood glue, and it's the wood glue with the green lid, and then the glue is kind of a grayish white tint. This wood glue from Titebond, not only is it waterproof, but it also has the longest open time. And when we talk about open time, we're talking about how long the glue can be exposed to air before it chalks or sets up. And so Titebond 3 of the different Titebonds, Titebond 1, Titebond 2, and Titebond 3 has a good open time. And it's also waterproof. So as we talk about washing your cutting board, you don't want to use a glue that's not waterproof, because your glue lines can open up. What tools will you need? You'll need a pencil, of course. I like to use a 0.9 millimeter, that'd be a big piece of lead, mechanical pencil, but you don't have to go buy a special pencil. Any pencil will do, even one that you have to sharpen. You will need a ruler or a straight edge. I have a metal one that I like to use. You do not have to have a metal one, just anything that's a good straight edge will do and that you can measure with. I use a tape measure that I have to measure distances, lengths, widths on my boards, and you'll need some way to do that. Of course, your ruler can double as that, but if you have a tape measure, that would be great. You do not need to go out and buy a tape measure. Any way that you can measure will work. And then you also need a hand saw. I highly recommend that you look into the Shark saw. This is a Shark saw, it's a pull saw, and the number is 10-2440. The reason I like these are extremely sharp tools. You might think that they would be difficult to learn to use, but they're actually, once you learn technique, they're actually easy to use. Now, I do want to say this word of caution. Before you go and start cutting on this wood and trying to cut a straight line, it is difficult if you don't know the proper technique to cut a straight line all the way through a board. And I will actually show you how to rip this board in half and have a very straight line on your saw using a hand saw. Anyway, I do recommend this saw. This saw has a replaceable blade, so if you ever get into something with the teeth on this saw, you can replace this blade. You can get it on Amazon, many other places. There are other options. For example, Lowe's has this Irwin saw, but the blade is not replaceable, but the teeth are very similar. And then I love my Japanese saws. I have various Japanese saws, and those are great choices too. However, I do want to caution you, like on this project, we will be ripping long cuts through boards, and so a back saw that has this spline on the back is not going to be good for this project. So these Japanese saws are great saws, great tools, but will not be, if it's a back saw like this, you will not be able to rip the boards the way that you need to on this project. So you'll also need some clamps to glue your project up. Now, I recommended these Pittsburgh clamps from Harbor Freight. I don't often recommend tools from Harbor Freight, but they actually did a great job on these clamps. The ones I have here are actually 6-inch clamps, but they fit in the screen better. But anyway, you need a 12-inch clamp. Now, the 12-inch clamp will not open up to 12 inches. It's going to be slightly less than 12 inches. It's going to be 11 and something, maybe 11 and 5/16. And so your boards, if you decide to use all of the material that I've provided widthwise without cutting a little off, you're going to need to go up to an 18-inch clamp. And that's fine if you want to do that. The cost is not that great of a cost. I would recommend then, instead of 4 18-inch clamps, you're going to use 2 of these clamps to hold pressure to glue the boards together, and you're going to use 2 clamps to help align the glue up as you glue your boards up. So you would get 2 18-inch clamps and 2 12-inch clamps, or 2 6-inch clamps. That would be fine. One of the things I like about these clamps is you can take the fixed head off, put it on the other end, and you'll end up with a spreader clamp, which with Possum boxes, you won't ever need a spreader clamp, but there will be times in your life that you might have to push something apart, and these clamps work great for that. One last thing that I want to talk about as far as working with this wood, and there are going to be other videos that talk you through how to process this material to get it into the format to glue up for your cutting board. You'll notice that there's obviously 4 sides to each of these boards, but 2 of the sides have circles on them. And I always denote my face jointed sides with circles. This circle face and then the opposite face, which also has circles on it, that will be your glue face. Why is that important? Because I have taken these boards, and you'll notice that you'll have 2 fairly smooth faces, and then you'll have a face that has saw marks in it. Okay, the faces with the circles are faces that I've run across a joiner, which means I got a true flat surface, and then I ran that face down in the planer with the cutter head on top, and I have a parallel surface made with the planer. That means if you glue them up in that orientation with circle to circle as your glue face, you'll end up with very clean glue ups that are very square and very true. And so that's pretty important. So as we rip these boards, you will be actually ripping on this face, and you'll transfer your circle marks to each piece of your cut. And keep in mind, that's the orientation that you want to glue up. Now we'll cover that again in the future videos as we get more into this. Well, I'm glad that you got this Possum box. This is a foundational project, learning how to use the saw, learning some techniques, and this techniques that we use in this project will help us with the next project that's forthcoming. I'm not going to tell you too much about that, but it builds upon this project, and it's going to be pretty exciting. I'm excited that you got the Possum boxes. I look forward to working with you. If you have any questions, please let me know. And we'll talk more about that and the social media aspect of this in the next video. Thank you, have a great day, and happy woodworking.